moving quickly, another handoff to Rankin. Rankin finds a hole, he's at the 30, makes it to the 20, he's got one man to beat. Rankin walks into the end zone. Into the backfield, Braden Wright looks over top, he's going to try to find a man, he's got Alec Tatum. Tatum bobbles it, but he's in the end zone. What a connection between Braden Wright and Alec Tatum. Handoff to Rankin, Rankin right up the middle, and he's in the end zone for a Bearcat touchdown.
You that the views expressed in today's show do not reflect the views of KZLX, KNWT, or Northwest Missouri State University. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show.
And welcome into the Weekend Sports Kickoff. Andrew Botwinick, Austin McNorton here with you on KNWT solely because there's a baseball game going on. Jacob's sick. Nolan, I don't remember what Nolan said he had to do, but Nolan's not here. Basketball interviews. Goodness. So busy. Everybody's so busy, but Weekend Sports Kickoff here on KNWT, Channel 8, Facebook page. That's what we got here today. We got plenty to talk about, college basketball specifically on this show, and then we'll kind of get into some of the future. We'll look forward, talk about the regional tournament for Division II side, bracketology on Division I side. We'll get into our picks later, and then we'll talk some combine because that was yesterday, and it's going on through, I believe, through Sunday and Monday as well. So plenty of stuff to go around in the sports world before we get to our Off My Rocker segment to end the show. But Austin, we had a great game yesterday. The men's side was pretty interesting. The women's side, a valiant, hard effort, and we don't know. We don't know about the future for that women's side just yet. They still have a chance to make it to Kansas City, but the way Newman's playing, man, it's going to come down to the wire on Saturday.
Well, I mean, it's truly, for everyone right now, Division II, Division I, March is in the full effect. March is in full swing of things, and it's truly fantastic. I mean, Newman women keep winning on buzzer beaters, and Northwest's women are truly having to wait until the absolute last day of the regular season to find out if they will end up going to Kansas City. And then the men have just continued their dominance, and even in a game last night where they struggled against Washburn, didn't matter. They're just they are the best team in the country. It's just so much fun.
We'll start with the women's side. They've lost 6 straight, dating back to Missouri Southern back on February 13th. The loss to Pitt State 2 days after that. Missouri Southern, Pitt State at home. They lost both of those games. The Pitt State game going into overtime. Missouri Western just last Tuesday, and then Washburn yesterday on Thursday. So 6 straight for the women's side. We'll take a look specifically now at the Washburn game from last night. It was an 83-58 loss. The first quarter, Northwest trailed 16-6. It really wasn't a great offensive quarter for them. They kind of picked it back up in the second half of this game, 18 points in the third quarter, 23 points in the fourth quarter. But by then, it was already a little bit too far out of reach at halftime. Washburn just kind of pulled way far ahead, 23-11 quarter in the second quarter for Washburn. They looked really strong offensively. Hunter Bentley had 22 points for Washburn, as well as Shelby Piggy getting in there with 12 points, I believe all in the second half as well.
Yeah. Washburn was just at a really impressive you see like throughout college basketball and the women's and the men's side, sometimes there's some teams that you just match up really, really well against. And Washburn's kind of game plan was to create turnovers and get out in transition. And they did that from the opening get-go, getting steals, getting layups, and Northwest just couldn't keep up. This is a team that's been battling injuries throughout the season, and they've been, struggling to shoot the ball at times. And then when you're having the other team just absolutely run layup drills on you, it becomes that much more difficult to try and pull out a win. And it's interesting because now Washburn, to me, I think is a team, when you're looking at the MIAA tournament coming up, that's a team that could potentially make some noise because they're playing their best basketball right now to end the season. And as a coach and as other coaches looking at that, you're sitting there saying this is a team we cannot sleep on. And last night, they were just unstoppable in all facets of the game.
We'll flip now. We'll go back to the men's side where Washburn gave Northwest a run for their money. It was a very hard-fought game in the first half. I believe Northwest was trailing at halftime by almost double digits, if I'm not mistaken. But Northwest able to kind of pull it back together after the half. They end up coming back to win this game 69-61. Very hard-fought, low-scoring game. And that's kind of what we got the last time these two teams played, 73-68 ball game. Very similar in that, two very defensively minded teams. I know Brett Ballard is a great defensive-minded coach. He was able to do a lot of things, and the assistant coach back at Wake Forest a couple of years prior to being at Washburn. He knows defense very well, proved it in this game, and that 2-3 zone that they ran for the majority of it kind of rattled Northwest.
Well, it really kind of shows what happens if you can lock up Trevor Hudgens. You are putting yourself in a really good position to win, and that just shows how important, how much of a leader, how much things start to go when Trevor Hudgens is in a rhythm. And he wasn't last night. The 2-3 zone really kind of affected it. That Tyler Geis for Washburn really did a good job when Washburn went to man of locking him down. And it was a really impressive game for Northwest in the sense that this right here is how your tournament games are going to be. This is how March is going to be. This is how once you get down to the, Central region, once you potentially move on, these are how these games are going to be. You may not have the best shooting night. You're going to run into some really good teams with really good coaches that are going to scheme well against you. And then what happens, Andrew? You look to the bench, Wes Dreamer. What an incredible performance last night from him. To come off the bench on senior night and to do what he was able to do really propelled Northwest to a victory. And when you're looking to March, what did we see last year when guys like Joey Wittes was battling an injury in Evansville? It went to guys like Xavier Rhodes to come in and make a difference. And so when you're looking at players like that, that was a big game for Wes Streamer. That was a big game for Ben McCollum to say, when we aren't playing our best, we still can win. And that's huge headed into the postseason.
And speaking of the postseason, we have some questions on the Facebook live stream. We got time to answer those now because we're just live on KNWT. So JD Wessel asks us, if we had to pick someone who steps up and helps Northwest in the playoffs, who do you think it would be? I think we're both kind of leaning towards the same answer here, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
We usually do, but if you had to pick someone right now on the men's side who could help Northwest in the playoffs, maybe go back to back now, who do you think it would be? I personally, I would assume outside of Trevor Hudgens and Ryan Hawkins, Diego Bernard.
Those are the go-to.
Those are the guys, but if all three of those guys are struggling, it has to be for me Wes Dreamer. Comes off the bench, he comes in, he's a great spark. He always comes in. I said this yesterday during the broadcast. Wes Dreamer has this mentality about him to come in and immediately take a shot. He'll come in, he'll shoot a three right off the bat. If he makes it, and he gets hot. If he misses it, the next possession, next time he gets open, he's not going to hesitate. He's going to shoot it again.
Last night, they had their second worst shooting performance of the season. 40% of its field goals. With 40%, is that your second worst performance of the season? What does that say, for one? But two, like I said, their worst shooting performance, they lost to Central Missouri. But then in last night's game, you're at home and you're still not shooting the ball at an effective rate. That to me shows that they can beat anybody in the country, no matter what it's like shooting. No matter what it's like.
Back on the Weekend Sports Kickoff, Andrew Botwinick, Austin McNorton here with you, as well as an analyst for college basketball, JD Wessel, is in with us now in studio. And we're going to take a look at the Division I side. We just spent the first hour talking Division II basketball. We're transitioning now to Division I. The newest, latest version of bracketology is out. And guys, it's almost March. We're on the cusp of being there. We're going to take a look region by region, talk about some of the higher seeds. We're going to talk some of the teams that are more likely to win it all, because at the end of the day, some of our picks might get right. We haven't been great just yet this season, but You never know. We could potentially get something going, but we're going to try and talk some of the best teams to look out for in March, and we're going to talk about some of the teams that are most likely to pull some spoilers according to this version of bracketology, but some of the teams might still be looking to pull something as well. So we'll start with the Midwest region specifically. Kansas, still your number 1 seed. Maryland is at your number 2 spot. And then at your 3 seeds, Kentucky, who slid up to the number 3 spot. They'll be playing in St. Louis. Your 4 seed in that region is going to be Louisville, who slid down. And then your 5 seed, Michigan State, sliding in as a 5 seed. Ohio State at number 6. Butler in at your number 7 seed. LSU, Indiana is your 8-9 matchup. And then your 10 seed, Utah State. Your 11 seed, Wichita State. And then your 12 and your 13, Northern Iowa and Vermont in at your 13. I think this region is pretty stacked. There's a lot of good games potentially down the line. I think Michigan State, Northern Iowa could be an interesting round in the very first round, the way Michigan State's been playing when they're not playing at home. This game being in Cleveland could get a little bit dicey. It's close to both Northern Iowa as well as Michigan State. A lot of fans will travel for that game. LSU, Indiana could be an interesting game as well. Indiana being a sneaky good one of those Big Ten teams. LSU on the verge of being into that top 25 the majority of the season. Ohio State, Wichita State. That's another one that I'll have on my radar. A 6-11 matchup. Wichita State played really great basketball to begin the season. Ohio State played really good basketball to begin the season. Both of those teams have kind of taken a step back just a tad bit. And then Butler, Utah State, that's another one that I'll have, a 7-10 matchup. That one could be an interesting one out of the Midwest as well.
So, yeah, I'm looking at this region, and it's truly crazy. We were just talking about how breaking down all the regions for Division II and how mad March will be. This is certainly, looking at just region number 1 here will be ridiculous. Look, KU is certainly one of the teams that I have as a favorite. They play such good defense, and this is, I think, probably one of, if not the best defensive teams that Bill Self has ever had at his tenure at Kansas. But I look at a game that you were just kind of hinting at, Andrew, Northern Iowa and Michigan State. That's a game that I have certainly circled. I think you look at that, I have Northern Iowa. If I'm looking at it right now, I would have them in my Sweet 16. Michigan State, I haven't been able to pick right all season. They can't seem to put it together for whatever reason. I don't know why that is. They were my clear favorite starting out the season, and I don't know why they can't put it together. And then Louisville this season, the ACC has been kind of weak, to be honest. There hasn't been a team I'm like, that team is going to win the national championship. Out of the ACC, not one of those teams I've felt confident in. So Northern Iowa, I'm looking at that. I'll put that as one of my spoilers right now.
Okay. Midwest, that's kind of how it shapes up there, and we'll look at the South region playing in Houston there. Baylor is your 1 seed, Florida State your 2 seed, and then your 3 seed in that region is Villanova, another Big East team. This one, we'll talk specifically about some of the Big East teams because, Austin, you and I have been high on the Big East this whole season.
They're so good.
Auburn is your 4 seed, Michigan at your 5 seed, and we'll talk specifically about Michigan later because I'm not a huge fan of where they put them. Arizona at your 6 seed, Marquette at your 7 seed, another Big East team. Your 8, your 9 matchup is Illinois, Arizona State as of right now. Your 10 seed is going to be East Tennessee State. Your 11 seed out of that region is Rhode Island. And then your 12 seed out of the same region is either NC State or Providence. That will be one of the playing games. Another Big East team potentially getting in. Plenty of Big East teams in the South region, which is the most interesting. And I think for Florida State, playing their first couple of rounds in Tampa, that's going to be huge. Yep. Normally, I would be really high on this Marquette team to make a push past Florida State in that second round, but that game being played in Tampa, I don't know if I'm going to put all my eggs into the Marquette basket once again.
Yeah, and looking at Marquette, as you were just bringing up there with Florida State, I do like Florida State defensively. Florida State, one of those teams that really spreads the floor with their athleticism. They're bringing back pretty much the same team they brought back last year. Right. And, obviously made a little bit of a run in the tournament last year, but, ultimately weren't able to, continue that stretch. But, for Marquette, they have Marcus Howard, so – that alone, I think, is enough for anyone to kind of, have high hopes. He's the leading scorer in the nation. I think he's actually right now, I think he's second in the nation scoring. And I think, the way Marquette plays, I think the only downfall truly would be Marcus Howard, potentially getting a guy in a tough matchup, a guy that can defend. Marcus Howard is obviously the spark plug for the team.
Does Marquette kind of live and die by Marcus Howard a little bit?
Not every single game. There are some games that have gone in other scoring ways, but because there are games where Marcus Howard will have 10 assists, and you're like, whoa, they probably lost by a lot, but they'll look in the box score, and it's like, okay, well, some other players have stepped up. The thing last year was that it was the Hauser twins, or the Hauser brothers, and then Marcus Howard. That first round against Murray State when they played John Morant did not work out well for them because John Morant's such a great defender. Obviously, he's a second pick in the NBA draft that year. He's looking to play very tough against Marcus Howard. Marcus Howard now in his senior season, he's looking to prove a little bit something. I think his very first game against East Tennessee State.
Being a 7 seed is very dangerous.
And obviously this isn't the final bracket for March Madness. So there is potential that if they get another game out, if I think any other 2 seed, Maryland, Dayton, Duke, I think Marquette could give them a run for their money, but Florida State specifically in Tampa, that's going to be an extremely tough ask, and I don't know if Marcus Howard and the rest of Marquette can get that done. Some of the other games out of the South region that I really think could be good ones, Michigan and either NC State or Providence. I think if it's Providence,
always a playing game.
If it's Providence out of the Big East, Providence could give Michigan a huge run for their money because they've been so inconsistent this year. Rhode Island, Arizona, another team out of the Big East that could get some spark there as well. I think Villanova, Colgate, probably won't be as good as a game as everybody's expected, but who knows? The South region looks a little bit interesting. There are some good matchups in there.
For sure.
I think further on in that bracket, in that region specifically, there could be some good games. I think Auburn could be a team that might run the table again in that region. Baylor is the 1 seed. That's going to be tough, though. In the East region, from New York, San Diego State is your 1 seed, Dayton at your 2 seed, and then your 3 seed, Seton Hall. Big East team, number 3. I think 3 of the 3 seeds are Big East teams, and we've talked about Villanova, Seton Hall, and there's another one in the West region that we'll get into specifically. Seton Hall is your 3 in the East, though. Penn State, your number 4 seed out of the East. Colorado is your 5. Iowa at your 6, West Virginia at your 7, your 8-9 matchup, Florida St. Mary's. I really like that matchup. I think that's a good matchup. Get a little bit of some interesting teams there, the SEC and the WCC. And then your 10 seed is Xavier, your 11 seed Cincinnati, your 12 seed Liberty, and then your 13 seed Stephen F. Austin. There's some good matchups. Colorado, Liberty, another 5-12 matchup that could come down to the wire. Liberty, the Flames, they've played some great basketball. Florida St. Mary's, I talked about that earlier. That's going to be a really good game regardless, I think.
Liberty's...
Welcome back to the Weekend Sports Kickoff. Andrew Botwinick, Austin McNorton, Jacob Blair sick, Nolan Brooks doing some interviews, and Sam Steinmeier out on the baseball diamond. We'll give you a score update here in just a second whenever we get to it and find it. But we'll talk about the Combine because that's
bottom of the 6, Northwest trailing 7-1.
There you go. There's your score update from the Diamond here in Maryville. We'll take a look now at the Combine, talk about some of the greatest performances that we've seen at the Combine. We did this yesterday on Day-to-Day Picks because yesterday the quarterbacks, the tight ends, and the wide receivers all had their debuts doing some drills. And we talk about some of the greatest performances. John Ross in the 40 a couple of years ago. Chris Jones back in 2008 setting the record at the time at 4.28. Byron Jones, your Cowboy, over there doing some great things. He went to Connecticut, came in, did the broad jump at 12 feet 3 inches, which is a world record back in 2015. Right. Just phenomenal performances we've seen over the last couple of days. And we'll take a look now specifically at this year's Combine. And after the first day from Thursday's results, we'll take a look at the 40s. Henry Ruggs III from Alabama, your fastest 40 time at 4.27. Quez Watkins right behind him, though. I guess right behind him with an asterisk. He's a couple bits away there in terms of milliseconds, but out of Southern Miss, 4.35 is the second fastest time right now out of the quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends. We still have the DBs to go the very last day. Some linebackers getting in there. I'm not sure if anybody's going to match Henry Ruggs, though, at 4.27. Denzel Mims out of Baylor getting into the third spot at 4.38. Some of the other names into the list, Antonio Gibson out of Memphis, 4.39. Chase Claypool out of Notre Dame, 6'4", ran a 4.42 40.
Wow.
So extremely fast. Justin Jefferson out of LSU, 4.43 40. That's a big one. Jerry Jeudy from Alabama ran a 4.45. You look further on down the line here, just a bunch of wide receivers getting in there. And then you have the lone tight end who made a name for himself out of Mizzou, Albert O., and I'm going to try and go ahead and say his last name, Okwuegbunam. I'm pretty sure that's how we said it yesterday. I botched it yesterday on Day-to-Day Picks. Sam, being the Homer Mizzou fan, he got me right. 4.49 for the tight end out of Mizzou. He is alone in the pack in terms of the wideouts. He is the fastest wideout out of everybody for the 40-yard dash time. He leads the way. The second fastest tight end, I believe Bryson Hopkins out of Purdue, 4.66 40 for him. So very interesting to see. Yeah, 4.66 for Bryson Hopkins.
I think that's a really big thing for tight ends to be able to show that, because you're seeing that now in today's NFL, you want more guys like George Kittle and Travis Kelce who are really fast, really athletic, not necessarily big, bulky linemen who can catch. They are wide receivers who can block. And that's kind of what we're seeing more of the trend becoming. So that's a big statement for that Missouri tight end to be able to show that speed, because that's what a lot of NFL teams are looking for now, is those tight ends that are more athletic, more so than blockers.
And we saw a pair of tight ends out of Iowa last year, T.J. Hawkinson, Noah Fant.
Right.
Those guys, both top 10 players. They go in. They play really well. Albert Ogwebunam decided to come back to his senior season at Mizzou, play that one out, wait another year to figure it out. And we'll talk more about his specific combine stats here, because he had an impressive combine day yesterday. Quarterback-wise, it was not Jalen Hurts that led the pack in terms of the 40. It was Cole McDonald out of Hawaii. 4.58 for him. Jalen Hurts, 4.59. Justin Herbert, 4.68. And then Kelly Bryant out of Mizzou, 4.69. Steven Montez, Colorado, 4.68. Jordan Love, 4.74. Nate Stanley, 4.81. Jacob Eason, 4.89, and then rounding out the quarterback times is Jake Fromm, to nobody's surprise, at 5.01. Probably one of the slower ones out of the bunch, but he's got the arm that makes up for it, though, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And so I'm wondering, I'll ask you, like, I've heard a lot of saying that the quarterback out of Utah State, Jordan Love, is starting to make up some serious ground in some of these combine workouts. Is the order still him being the fourth quarterback off the board, or has he made a jump potentially over Justin Herbert now?
Sadly, I would like to say that he's still going to be a top 15 pick, but he is still on that fourth spot.
Okay.
Just because it's number one's going to be Burrow. Mm-hmm. Number two is probably going to be Tua to the Dolphins. It's been that way the whole year.
Right.
The third quarterback, the pick after that, I think number 6 to the Chargers, probably going to be Herbert. And then you'll probably slide down to, I believe, wherever the Colts are, I think number 12 or 13. That's probably where Jordan Love will come off the board, because the Colts really like Jordan Love. They like what he's able to bring to the table. And if he's able to kind of get something going for them, if he's still on the board, they're not going to hesitate. They'll pick him up. They'll take him. In terms of the actual bench press event, you bench 225 as many times as you can. Josiah DeGuara out of Cincinnati, the tight end, 25 reps for him. Hunter Bryant, 23. And then your first wideout out of Wisconsin, Quintez Cephas, 23 reps for him on there as well. So bench press, we see some of the tight ends, some of the wide receivers go in there and bench, the quarterbacks bench. Chase Claypool, the 6'4" wide receiver out of Notre Dame, he's on the list pretty high up for wideouts. 19 reps for him. Not super impressive for some of these tight ends, wide receivers, but very impressive numbers in terms of their actual positional group. Once the offensive and defensive linemen go, it's going to look a little bit more slated, but
exactly.
For now, those guys are leading the way. Vertical jump, 44.5 inches for Michigan's Donovan Peoples-Jones. A very impressive number for him. He's leading the pack. Henry Ruggs in at third with a 42-inch vertical. Chase Claypool, the 6'4" wide receiver, we talked about him earlier. 40.5-inch vertical for him out of Notre Dame. He's going to be an interesting one.
Who right now is the best wideout coming out of this draft class?
Probably Henry Ruggs. I think in terms of combine-wise, he is probably the first guy. Another name, C.D. Lamb out of Oklahoma. Those guys are tit for tat, as well as Jerry Jeudy. It's probably, I think right now, in terms of a power ranking system-wise, C.D. Lamb will probably be the first wide receiver taken off the board. Jerry Jeudy probably, and then Henry Ruggs probably at that third spot. But I will say Chase Claypool is making a name for himself. He's been getting a lot of comparisons to Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson, 6'5". Chase Claypool, 6'4". I had a statistic, actually. I'm going to try and find it real quick while we're talking. Sam Steinmeier and I were talking about this earlier. The numbers for Claypool and Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson ran 6'5", weighs 239 pounds when he came into the league, ran a 4.40. Chase Claypool, 6'4", 238 pounds, ran a 4.4240.
Wow.
So a lot of same similarities. I'm not saying these guys are tit for tat the same player, but the way that the rest of the combine has gone for Chase Claypool at a 41-inch vertical, essentially, it looks like he's going to be making a huge name for himself as well. In terms of the broad jump, Donovan Peoples-Jones as well for Michigan, winning that one at 139 inches jumped, and then Henry Ruggs, 131. So he's in there as well. Further on down the list, Chase Claypool, 126 broad jump for him. Some of the cone drills, nothing too crazy there. Some interesting names. Morgan Jones, the slowest cone drill at 7.51. Denzel Mims out of Baylor running a 6.66. And then further on down the line, there are some interesting names that get in there as well. Justin Herbert in the top 15 there for Oregon at 7.06. The cone drill, nothing really too crazy that comes out of that one. It's just something that people keep an eye on. But Chase Claypool, Henry Ruggs, those types of guys are making huge names for themselves. We have plenty to talk about that's going to be going on as the rest of the combine comes out. I think today is, if I'm not mistaken, if I can find it, if it'll pull up for me, I think today is running backs, offensive linemen, and then the special teamers going in there. So we've already seen some of the special teamers go in. Alex Petchin out of Bucknell ran a 4.73. Right now, he is the fastest time. I don't think the running backs have gone just yet. They have the offensive linemen. Some of the special teamers are going now. The fastest offensive lineman 40 time, if you're keeping track, Ezra Cleveland out of Boise State. Sub-5, 4.94 for him out of Boise State. And we'll take a look now, see what he's working with. 6'6", 311 pounds, running a
That's pretty incredible.
Sub 540. Interesting, an interesting
That's
one.
Insane. So